Welcome back to the tutorials of Graph. In the previous video, we have seen how we can create and modify a brain atlas using Graph. Here, we are going to get familiar with the MRI Cohort package of the toolbox. In order to start building a cohort, you have to load a brain atlas saved in .atlas format. If you have opened MRI Cohort directly from the brain atlas interface, you don't need to upload your atlas. To upload the atlas, click on the Select Atlas button. Now you have to find and select the atlas you have created. I'm going to use the atlas that we created in the previous video. After you select your atlas, all the buttons which were disabled become enabled. After you load the atlas, its name and number of regions appear. If you want to visualize the atlas you have selected for creating the cohort, you can click the View Atlas button and the Brain Atlas appears. Note that you cannot modify the atlas here. If you wish to do so, you need to go back to the Brain Atlas package of Graph. In the box below the Brain Atlas panel, you can assign the desired name to your cohort. Here, I changed the name of my cohort into My Cohort. The next step in creating the cohort is adding the groups of subjects. In order to add each group of subjects, you must have them in .xls, .xml, or .txt files. Again, these files should be prepared in a proper format. The first column includes the code or name of the subjects, and the first row includes the names of the regions of the atlas. Notice that the first box of the first row should not be empty. Remember that the number and order of these regions should be the same as the number and order of the regions of the brain atlas that you are using. For each subject, the data corresponding to each region go below the name of the region. So, each subject should have a row of data ordered exactly as the atlas used. You can find the sample data that we are using here on graph.org. In order to load your groups, click on Load Subject Groups from XLS, TXT, or XML, depending on the format of your data. After loading a group, the data of the subjects of the group appear. Now I'm loading a second group for future analysis. After loading each group, you see its properties appear in the table on the left side. By selecting each group, the data of the subjects of the selected group appear. By clicking on the second and the last columns, you can change the name of the group, or you can add notes. By using the buttons below this table, you can add a new empty group, remove the selected group without losing its subject's data. You can reorder the groups by moving the selected groups up or down. You can perform all of these actions as well as load subject groups also by using the Groups menu. If you want to create a new group of subjects, including all subjects that are not included in a certain group, select that certain group and click on the Invert button. For merging two groups, select the two groups and click on Merge. Finally, to intersect two groups, select them and click on Intersect. I will now remove these three groups that we created to keep the tutorial simple. Now I move to the panel on the right side of the interface. If you want to save the data of the subjects as a .txt file, click on Save Subjects as TXT. By clicking on Groups and Demographics, you can see and change the profile of each subject, the code, age, gender, and the nodes assigned to each one of them, as well as the groups to which they belong to. In order to select subjects, click on the checkbox provided on the left side of each subject's code. To select all subjects, click on the Select All button, and to deselect them, use Clear Selection. If you want to add a new subject, click on Add Subject. A subject with default characteristics appears at the bottom of the table. If you prefer to add a subject below or above a certain subject, after selecting that subject, use the Add Above or Add Below buttons. To remove specific subjects, select them and click on Remove. For reordering the subjects in the table, you can select some subjects and move them up, down, to the top, or to the bottom. You can perform all of these actions also via the Subjects menu. To create a new group out of the selected subjects, click on New Group from Selection. By checking the checkboxes next to a subject and corresponding to each group, you can assign that subject to groups. Now I move to the Group Average panel. When you click on this button, the average value and standard deviation of the input values corresponding to each brain region and each group appear. If you want to compare these values between two groups, first select the two groups, then assign the number of random permutations, which is indicated as m. Then click on Comparison. If you do so, the difference between the input value of each region and their single and double-tailed p-value appear, as well as their average value and standard deviation. Now I move to the final panel, which is Brain View. First of all, if you want to hide or show labels, spheres, symbols, grid, axis, or brain, or have different views, you can use this toolbar. If you want to visualize the data of a subject, you should click on View Subject. After selecting it, this interface appears. On the left panel, you can select your desired subject. This panel on the right is used to visualize the data. At the top, the offset and scale of the visualization can be defined. Furthermore, you can select whether you want to visualize the absolute value of data or their original value. If you want to use automatic scaling, you should click on the Automatic Rescaling button. At the bottom, you can select the visualization method you want to use. By checking symbol size, sphere radius, or label size, you can visualize the values using the size of the symbols, spheres, or labels of the brain regions. The bigger they are, the higher values they have. By choosing the symbol, sphere, or label color, you can differentiate between high and low values based on the colors of the symbols, spheres, or labels. Select the colors with the drop-down lists. On the left is the color of the region with largest value, and on the right is the color of the region with lowest value. In addition, you can select the sphere transparency option. Regions with lowest value become most transparent. If you push the View Group button, you can visualize the average value and standard deviation of the data for each group in the same way as I explained for View Subjects. Finally, to visualize comparisons between two groups, click on View Comparison. Again, by using the same visualization method as before, you can compare groups based on average value, standard deviation, or single or double-tailed p-value of the data for each region. If you right-click on the brain figure, you can see other actions provided for better visualization. If you select Brain Settings, an interface appears in which you can modify the brain color and its face and edge colors and transparencies. If you select Brain Region Symbol Settings, another interface appears. In the list on the left, you can select the regions whose symbols you want to change. By checking each of these boxes, you can see the labels, names, coordinates, or hemispheres of the selected regions. By clicking on Show Regions and Hide Regions, you can show or hide the selected regions. By choosing the symbol from this drop-down list, you can change the shape of the symbols. You can also define the size of symbols. For changing the color of symbols and their edges, use these buttons. By selecting Brain Regions Sphere Settings, you can alter the spheres representing the brain regions. In this interface, you can hide or show spheres by clicking on the Show Regions and Hide Regions buttons. You can change the size of the spheres, the color of the spheres, faces and edges, and also their transparency. In the case that you select Brain Regions Label Settings, you can change the font size and style of their labels, their color, and interpreter. After we modified the brain, you can generate a figure under the Brain View menu. When you finish the preparation of your cohort, you should save it. Notice that Brave saves the cohort as a .mc file, which will be used by the MRI graph analysis part of the toolbox. If you want to start your analysis right away, go to the Graph Analysis menu and select New MRI Graph Analysis. I will explain this part in next video. Thanks for watching.